Muscle actions, agonists means any mover muscle that directly performs a movement including the prime mover. Muscle actions, antagonist means muscles that when contracting, directly oppose prime movers. These relax while the prime mover is contracting to produce movement. Provide precision and control during contraction of prime movers. Muscle actions, synergists means muscles that contract at the same time as the prime movers. They facilitate prime mover actions to produce a more efficient movement. Muscle actions, fixator muscles means joint stabilizers. Types of lever systems parts. 1. Rigid bar. 2. Fulcrum around which the rod moves. 3. Load that is moved. 4. Pole that produces movement. Types of lever systems. 1. First-class levers. 2. Second-class levers. 3. Third-class levers. First-class levers are: fulcrum lies between the pole and the load, not abundant in the human body. Serve as levers of stability. Second-class levers are: load lies between the fulcrum and the joint at which the pole is exerted. Presence of these levers in the human body is a controversial issue. Third-class levers are: pole is exerted between the fulcrum and load, permit rapid and extensive movement, most common type of lever found in the body. Muscles of facial expressions are unique in that at least one point of attachment is to the deep layers of the skin over the face or neck. Muscles of mastication are responsible for chewing movements. Muscles that move the head are paired on either side of the neck, are responsible for head movements. Muscles of the thorax are of critical importance in respiration. Muscles of the abdominal wall are arranged in 3 layers, with fibers in each layer running in different directions to increase strength. Types of muscles. Parallel, convergent, pinnate, fusiform, spiral, circular. Example of a parallel muscle: sartorius. Example of a convergent muscle: pectoralis major. Examples of a 1. Unipinnate, 2. Bipinnate and 3. Multipinnate muscle. 1. Flexor pollicis longus. 2. Rectus femoris. 3. Deltoid. What is the origin of a muscle? Point of attachment that does not move when the muscle contracts. What is the insertion of a muscle? Point of attachment that moves when the muscle contracts. What is a prime mover muscle? A muscle that directly performs a specific movement. What is an agonist's muscle? Any mover muscle that directly performs a movement, including the prime mover. What is an antagonist muscle? Muscles that when contracting directly oppose the prime movers. What are fixator muscles? Joint stabilizers. What is a synergist muscle? Muscles that contract at the same time as the prime movers. What is a first-class lever? When the fulcrum lies between the pull and the load. What is a second-class lever? When the load lies between the fulcrum and the joint which the pull is exerted. What is a third-class lever? When the pull is exerted between the fulcrum and load. Muscles of facial expression. Unique in that at least one point of attachment is to the deep layers of the skin. Muscles of mastication. Responsible for chewing movements. Muscles that move the head. Paired muscles in either side of the neck are responsible for head movements. Muscles of the thorax. Of critical importance in respiration. Muscles of the abdominal wall. Arranged in 3 layers, with fibers in each layer running in different directions to increase strength. Muscles of the back. Bend or stabilize the back. Muscles of the pelvic floor. Support the structures in the pelvic cavity. General functions of muscles. Movement, heat production and posture. Characteristics of skeletal muscle cells. 1. Excitability 2. Contractibility 3. Extensibility. Excitability in muscle cells means ability to be stimulated. Contractibility in muscles means ability to contract or shorten and produce movement. Extensibility on muscles means ability to extend or stretch, thereby allowing muscles to return to their resting length. What is the sarcolemma? Plasma membrane of muscle fibers. What is the sarcoplasmic reticulum? 1. T-tubules, a network of tubules and sacs found in the muscle fibers. 2. Membrane of the SR continuously pumps calcium ions from the sarcoplasm and stores in with sacs for later use. What are myofibrils? Numerous fine fibers packed close together in sarcoplasm. What is the sarcomere? Segment of myofibril between two Z discs. What are T-tubules? 1. Transverse tubules extend across the cercoplasm at raked angles to the long axis of muscle fibers. 2. Membrane continuously pumps calcium ions inward from the cercoplasm. 3. Allow electrical impulses traveling along the sarcolemma to move deeper in the cell. What is striated muscle? Dark stripes called A-bands. Light H-band runs across the midsection of each dark A-band. Light stripes called I-bands. Dark Z-disc extends across the center of each light I-band. What is a triad? 1. Triplet of tubules, a T-tubule sandwiched between two sacs of sarcoplasmic reticulums. 2. Allows an electrical impulse traveling across the T-tubule to stimulate the membranes of adjacent sacs of the sarcoplasmic reticulum. What makes up a myofilament? 1. Myosin. 2. Actin. 3. Tropomyosin. 4. Troponin. What is myosin? 1. Makes up almost all of the thick filament. 2. Heads are chemically attracted to actin. 3. Heads are known as cross bridges when attached to actin. What is actin? Globular protein that forms two fibrous strands around each other. What is tropomyosin? Protein that blocks the active sites on actin molecules. What is troponin? Protein that holds tropomyosin molecules in place. What is a skeletal fracture? A break in the continuity of a bone occurs when force is applied that exceeds the tensile strength of the bone. Classifications of fractures. A complete fracture is: the bone is broken all the way through. An incomplete fracture is: the bone is damaged but intact. An open fracture is: skin is broken. A closed fracture is: skin is not broken. A comminuted fracture is: the bone breaks into two or more fragments. A oblique fracture is: the break occurs at an angle to the shaft of the bone. A spiral fracture is: break encircles the bone. A transverse fracture is: break straight across the bone. A green stick fracture is: splintering of the spongy bone. A torus fracture is: cortex buckles but does not break. A bowing fracture is: A longitudinal force is applied to the bone. A pathologic fracture is break at the site of a pre-existing abnormality. A stress fracture is occurs when bone is subjected to repeated stress. A fatigue fracture is caused by abnormal stress or torque applied to a bone with ability to deform and recover. A insufficiency fracture is occurs in bones lacking the normal ability to deform and recover. A transchondral fracture is fragmentation and separation of a portion of the articular cartilage that covers the end of a bone at a joint. A dislocation is when a temporary displacement of one or more bones in a joint. A subluxation is a partial dislocation. A tendon connects muscle to bone. A ligament connects bone to bone. A strain is a tear in a tendon. A sprain is a tear in a ligament. A avulsion is a complete separation of tendon or ligament from its bony attachment. Tendonitis is inflammation of tendons. Epicondylitis is inflammation of a tendon where it attaches to a bone at its origin. Lateral epicondylitis is tennis elbow. Medial epicondylitis is golfer's elbow. Bursitis is inflammation of the bursae. A muscle strain is the result of sudden, forced motion causing the muscle to become stretched beyond normal capacity. Myoglobinuria is an excess of myoglobin in the urine. Muscle damage releases myoglobin. Crush syndrome equal most severe form. Osteoporosis is the mass of bone is decreased and the structural integrity of trabecular bone is impaired. Osteopenia happens when the bone mass decreases to 833 to 648 milligrams per square centimeter. Osteoporosis is when the bone mass decreases to below 648 milligrams per square centimeter. Osteomalacia. Inadequate and delayed mineralization of bone in mature compact and spongy one. Bone volume remains the same but the bone is soft, known as rickets in pediatrics. Exogenous osteomyelitis is an infection that enters from outside the body into the bone tissue. Endogenous osteomyelitis, caused by pathogens carried in the blood from sites of infection elsewhere in the body to the bone tissue. Muscles dystrophy causes muscles to weaken and break down over time. Duchenne muscular dystrophy is when muscular paralysis associated with large amounts of fat and connective tissue. Types of scoliosis. 1. Idiopathic, progress while the child is growing. 2. Congenital, due to a bony deformity. 3. Teratologic, due to another systemic syndrome. Osteochondrosis is partial loss of blood supply, death of bone, progressive bony weakness, and then microfractures cause trauma or change in clotting sensitivity, vascular injury, or combination. Septic arthritis is bacterial or granulomatous infection of the joint space. Clubfoot is when the foot is adducted and supinated. Aerobic pathways are occurs when adequate oxygen is available from blood slower than anaerobic pathway, that supplies energy for the long term than the short term. Anaerobic pathway are very rapid, providing energy during first minutes of maximal exercise, may occur when low levels of oxygen are available, results in the formation of lactic acid. What are chondrocytes? The cells that produce cartilage. What kind of tissue is cartilage? Avascular. What is a callus? Is the calcification of the fracture hematoma. What is the name of a bone when it loses its continuity? A fracture. Mechanical stress weakens bones. False. Why do we need epiphyseal plates? For vertical growth of bones. How do we get bones to growth in width? By activating osteoclasts, and then activating the osteoblasts. What kind of bone is produced by endochondral ossification? Long bones. What kind of bone is produced by intramembranous ossification? Flat bones. Deficiency in parathyroid glands causes parathyroid hyperplasia or chronic kidney disease. What does calcium do in the body? Blood clotting, muscle contractions, nerve impulse transmissions, bone formation, remodeling and repair. What is the myeloid tissue? What tissue that produces blood cells where? In the bone marrow. What do osteoclasts do? Erode bone and release calcium. Where do blood vessels that feed the bones come from? Periosteum. Osteoblasts synthesize osteoid, an important part in the ground substance. Cancellous bones are made up of spongy, porous, bone tissue that is filled with red bone marrow. Where is the central canal located? In the Haversian Canal. Functions of bones. Support protection movement mineral storage hematopoiesis. Types of bones. Long bones, short bones, flat bones, irregular bones, sesamoid bones. Types of bone densities. Compact bones, dense and solid cancellous cones, spongy and have an open space partially filled with thin branched structures supporting soft tissue. Parts of a long bone. Diaphysis, epiphyses, articular cartilage, periosteum. Diaphysis is the main shaft of the bone made of compact bone. Epiphyses is the ends of the bone made of cancellous bone. Articular cartilage is the layer of hyaline cartilage that covers the articular surface of epiphyses. Periosteum is the dense, white fibrous membrane that covers the bone. Endosteum is the thin fibrous membrane that lines the medullary cavity. Structure of a flat bone. Inner portion is cancellous bone covered on the outside with compact bone. Hydroxyapatite is crystals of calcium and phosphate contribute to bone hardness. Ground substance is secreted by connective tissue cells and adds to overall strength of the bone. Compact bones contain cylinder units called osteons or Haversian systems. Structures that make up each osteon. Lacunae canal, Achilles central canal. Lacunae is small spaces containing tissue fluid. Canaloculi are ultra-small canals radiating in all directions from the lacunae, and connecting them to each other and to the central canal. The central canal extends lengthwise through the center of each osteon and contains blood vessels and lymphatic vessels. Osteoclasts are responsible for the active erosion of bone minerals. Bone marrow is a type of soft, reticuloendothelial tissue called myeloid. Two types of marrow. Red marrow, yellow marrow. Red marrow is found in virtually all bones in an infant or child's body, function to produce red blood cells. Yellow marrow is as an individual ages, red marrow is replaced by yellow marrow. Marrow cells become saturated with fat and are no longer active in blood cell production. Calcitonin is a protein hormone produced in the thyroid gland, produced in response to high blood calcium levels. Osteogenesis is development of bone from small cartilage or membrane model to adult bone. What makes up the organic matrix? Composed of collagenous fibers, and an amorphous mixture of protein and polysaccharides called ground substance. Osteoarthritis is the degeneration and loss of articular cartilage in synovial joints. Characteristics of arthritis.